All right, everybody. I want to thank y'all for tuning in to One Objective tonight. Guys, we got a really good show lined up for you. We're very excited to have this guest on tonight. It's been something that we have talked with Drew for a while, or, off and on here and there, and then actually talked at ICAST. And we were like, hey, man, we got to get you on there. So you can actually probably hear him in the background a little bit, talking, moving some stuff around right now. But anyways, we're going to have him on tonight. Sorry I started laughing when the show first come on. I'm sitting here trying to adjust my chair and get my mic right, and I ended up hitting the button on the chair and slammed her all the way to the ground. And I'm trying to get Chris is laughing at me. And, oh, man. But anyways, it was a mess. So, but anyways, guys, I'm super excited to be back into the studio. It's been a while. It's been, I'm going to say it's been kind of crazy in the Carter and Bush household with COVID. Not going to sugarcoat that whatsoever with us getting it. And then we did a really good job at staying away from James and them. I didn't go down there any. And then Chris, can we mute him out on the desktop audio there or not? I don't know.
It's already muted.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay. But anyways, I don't think you realize it. So, but anyways, James, now his family end up getting it. Not from us on that one, thankfully, because we stayed away when all that was going on. So, but, prayers with him right now, trying to just get well. And our family's doing really well. We're out of our quarantine stage, so that's been nice. But like I say, sorry for all the beating and banging, guys. I done already tried to tell him to mute it, but
I got it muted, but it doesn't mute what we hear from him.
yeah, that's crazy. So, but anyways, got a lot of big things have been going on here lately, guys. I mean, we got Ike qualifying for the elites through the opens. So I haven't seen word. I guess he's going to fish the elites. I know he pulled out and didn't fish major league fishing. I know he didn't. Chris, if you can keep working on that, I don't know what else you can do or not, but cutting something down or what. But anyways, Ike qualifying for the Classic. You got let's see, it's a lot. It's just a lot of stuff going on with the kayak tournaments and everything. So sorry guys, I'm getting distracted too with it. Heavy breathing there. But anyways, I'm sorry. This show's just starting off crazy, but no, like I say, it's been a crazy last couple of days with you got your Hobie events going on. You had your kayak bass fishing events going on. That's why we want to talk to Drew Gregory, because he's Mr. Consistent, man. He has. I mean, we start giving you all these stats, it's crazy, and you can see why he's second in the Hobie tournaments. You can see why he's fifth in the KBF National Point Series. You can see why he's cashed checks 8 out of the 9 events that he has fished in the Hobie Series. We was talking earlier. He's got the highest average finish of anyone in the KBF tournaments, or national championships. So we're going to be talking with him and figuring out, what it takes to be consistent, because it's one thing to go out there and just try to win a tournament, but if you want to actually compete for points and all that, you got to be consistency. You got to have some kind of consistency. So, and it's tough because sometimes you don't know if you should just go out there and fish defensively or offensively, and that means, are you fishing just to get points, or are you just gonna go out here and just try to win this thing and see how well you do in points? You know what I mean? If it's your hero is zero. And now we've seen it a lot on the elite side, and it's, like Brandon Polnick, for instance. Now, granted, he's had a couple of good years, but if you look at some of his stuff, he'd either do really, really well, or he'd kind of struggle a little bit, So when you do stuff like that, it's hard to win an AOY. Now, to some people, that doesn't matter. You just want to go out and win the tournament, and then how everything falls at the end of the year is how it falls. But you got to look at it two different ways. If you want to win AOI, or do you want to win a tournament? So, and you can do both. but you better be on your A game when you do it. And right now he is really close. You know what I mean? Like he's very close in the Hobie BOS series, and you know he's a reigning AOI. So I mean he's trying to go for it again. And I mean the only way you can do that is like saying being consistent, and to do that 2 years in a row, there's got to be some kind of not a secret or just pattern or whatever it is. So anyways, we're going to be talking with him about that. Yeah, I think so, Chris. I'm not sure on that one, man.
All right.
But anyways, but before we get into the show, guys, I really want to thank all of our sponsors. We've got some really good sponsors. They've really helped us out. They've been with us since day one, and we're really, really happy to have these guys. I mean, they've done a lot for us. We've done a lot for them. It's been great to work with these sponsors, and that's the thing about when you get, when we talk with these guys, especially getting into tournaments or into whatever you're trying to do, social media wise or whatever, is to actually get on with a sponsor that you feel confident with, that you like to work with, because if not, it makes it tough to work with a company and hard to promote a company when you don't believe in the product. But also it needs to work both ways. You know what I mean? You got to have a company that wants to back you as much as you back them. So, but anyways, I want to thank Missile Baits, Falcon Rods, Bino, Yak Attack, Power Pole, and RBT Custom Baits, guys. I want to thank them. So, also, stay tuned. If you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel yet, go check that out, because we got some pretty good content that's really, I feel like we've been doing some decent content, especially with some how-to stuff and some fishing videos, and then also some install stuff. But we also got a new vlog I'm going to be filming this week. I'm going to pick up me and James's new toys. That's what I'm going to call them, new toys. I don't want to give it away yet, but there's going to be a lot of great content follow along with this. So I don't know if James will be able to go with me to pick them up, but I'm going to be making a trip down south. That's all I'm going to say, to pick these toys up. I almost let it slip, Chris.
Yeah, you about messed up.
Yeah, I about messed up. But we're going to go down south. We're going to pick up these new toys and be shooting a vlog with it. You'll start seeing stuff on social media with it. It's very excited to be moving into this. So, but anyways, also, like I say, if you haven't subscribed, please go subscribe as well. Anyways, just for other information and all that we've been putting out there, like our shows are on YouTube right now as well. So if you're watching, want to get into the comments, Chris is checking YouTube and on Facebook as well. Let's see. Also, just if you guys are interested, I know a lot of you guys are just big fish head fans, but if you're interested in racing, we started another YouTube channel just for like my son and the family with our racing with Matthews Kart Racing. So that's CRM Motorsports. It's Carter Racing Motorsports on YouTube. So make sure you go check that out. Also, one more thing I want to get to before we get Drew on is Eric Cadillac. If any of you guys, a lot of you guys that fish around here locally, y'all know him. Really great guy. He is probably the funniest dude to be around. Always in a great mood. I want to say back in June. I know it was when I was at the Classic. He was in a horrible accident. Really messed up his left arm, I think it was. In the hospital for a while. A lot of surgeries to get things right. But like I said, he was a big advocate of bass fishing, and he helped host. He still helps host the Winter Series. Just a great dude to be around, man. I mean, I don't think I've ever heard anybody had a bad thing to say about him. He's just such a funny guy, and he's a big family man. And anyways, the Basscast helped with doing a benefit tournament for him yesterday, and I wasn't able to fish. I really wanted to fish it, but we had my daughter's cheer and her birthday party, so it just wasn't in the cards for me this weekend to go out there and fish, and I wished I could. But big kudos to Brian Carter at the Basscast and everybody else, all the sponsors that helped out with the giveaway, and also just the community itself coming together and helping a fellow angler. Man, it's awesome to see. I think it was like 90, don't hold me to it, it was between 92 and 95 teams boats signed up. So awesome to see that everybody come together. So But other than that, guys, if you haven't yet, please share the show right now. Let's get some more people in here. Let's make sure we get a lot of questions for Drew. And like I say, Chris he's going to try to get to all of them. We're going to try to get to all of them. If we don't, I apologize. But like I say, let's go ahead and get Drew in here. We're going to talk about being consistent. Let me know when we got him in here, Chris.
He's there.
All right, Drew, we got you, man. Uh-oh. Is he still on? I
think he's still got his muted.
He's still muted. Oh, you got me, Drew?
All right, I'm here.
There we go.
All right, man. How you doing tonight, man?
I'm doing good, man. I was just literally responding to a text from somebody who is telling me that they are going to be selling their really nice house on a river in Georgia. So if anybody out there is listening, it's one of the most magical houses you could ever want to buy on an amazing river. The only problem is it's about a $2 million price tag.
Oh, man. Come on. The banks have got that money.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. You just go in there and sign the paperwork.
Yeah, it's amazing. So I just got that text and sorry to hear they're moving because that was a nice little private access spot I had to a river. But
yeah. Well, I mean, just think, man, of all the checks you've cashed, you might be able to make some payments on that thing, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah, one payment.
Oh, man. So,
we need to step it up, kayak fishing. Come on.
That's right. We need some more money in here to start paying for these big, say weekend homes.
Yeah, right. Exactly. $2,500 entry fees. Let's go next year. Come on.
That's right. Oh, man. So how you been doing, man? I mean, like I say, we're talking about consistency tonight, but I mean, what have you been up to? I know, you just had a good finish for the, was it the KBF side series?
Yeah.
But like
I
say,
did.
Yeah, and I mean, let's talk about that tournament a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about that, how your practice went and how your events went, and then we'll kind of dig into your year.
Yeah, man, sounds good. So I had 2 tournaments back to back, and we can dig into the other one if you want to. But I had lacrosse for the Hobie Bass Open Series, and then most recently was the KBF Trail Series event on Kentucky Lake. So, to me it was just a typical Drew Gregory type event. I went into this one kind of just banking on some history because I'd fished the weekend before in lacrosse, and my wife is pregnant with our, second on the way, a little girl, and due in December. So couldn't really drive all the way to lacrosse and pre-fish over there for, 3-4 days. I'd never been there before. So I felt great to cash a check, but I couldn't go there and then just travel straight down, to Kentucky Lake and pre-fish there and be gone for 2 weeks straight, So I went into Kentucky Lake with just about 4 hours of pre-fishing time. Fished a little bit of history, fished some creeks, real quickly, just looked at some spots, just hoping that it had some decent fish, decent amount of water and decent fish in them, because this is the time of the year it starts to get where the bass from lakes will start pushing shad up creeks. I don't know if it really was happening or not there, but there were decent fish in the creek, and I missed my fair share of fish that could have pushed me up a little bit higher. But all in all, I can't complain with how KBF runs it. 2 separate tournaments on a weekend with a 5th place and a 3rd place finish. So can't complain. And just typical, Crescent little ultralight kayak and the CK1 Venture, very lightweight boats. I used a different boat each day, and just a Bendy Branches paddle and about 3 rods and a small tackle box, and just kind of went to work and power fished my way as much as I could. Spinner baits, buzz baits, whopper ploppers, chatter baits, the typical stuff I like to catch them on. And just ended up with another consistent finish, which is starting to become, I think, something I'm sort of known for. As you guys talked about, I'm sort of known for that now with the AOY at Hobie, and this year just being real consistent on the AOY standings on both series. So it's a good event, man. Can't complain.
Well, that's good. That's real good. Chris, you said we got some questions coming.
We got
already?
A couple. The Forgotten Man on YouTube wants to know if he still has his Orion cooler and how's it holding up if he still uses it.
I do, man. I've got an Orion still from back in my Jackson days. I got a couple actually, but I use a little 25 quart every once in a while, and mine's been holding up fine. But I haven't maybe used it as much as some other people, but hopefully yours is holding up good too, man.
What else we got, Chris?
He's wanting to know what his current favorite kayak tournament series is.
Man, that is hard because there's things I love about all of them. But if I had to pick one, I tell you what it is. It's not really. I think they're all run really well. Hobie's run well, KBF has run well, and BASS has run well, and they all have their small glitches and honestly things. Our sport's so young that they're all learning from like incidents that happen or things that happen, and then the cool thing is the next year or even the next tournaments they've already fixed or changed those things to make them better for the anglers. But my favorite, if I had to pick one, it would probably be the Hobie series because I again they're all run really well, but I like the 2-day format, and that really to me, look at the Bassmaster Elite Series or the PGA Tour or anything at the top level. It's not like you can just go and be the quote best, compete against the best and be the best by just winning a 1-day event, a 1-day tournament.
Yeah.
So the longer the tournament on any individual sport like golf or fishing, the longer the tournament, the more you really see the best players or anglers rise to the top. And that's why I prefer those events because I may not always have the number one, best stringer on the day, but I feel like you give me multiple days in a row. And that's why, like at the KBF National Championship, Chad had mentioned I've got the highest average finish, and the KBF National Championship is like 3 days. You know what I mean? So the more days you give me, I feel like I pretty much always get a limit. You know what I mean? I'm consistent. But again, I may not have the highest ceiling on the 1-day stringer, but I'm consistent on just always getting a limit and usually upgrading a little bit and keeping it pretty solid. So I would have to say Hobie if you kind of put a gun to my head and made me choose.
Yeah.
I would say the Hobie because I really like that 2-day format. But they're all pretty awesome.
Yeah, we talked at ICAST about this, and I wish that's one thing that because I've always been a bass supporter. Like I fished a lot of BASS stuff when I was in the bass boat stuff. So I that's what I kind of grew up fishing. So it's easy. I don't know. It's just I support that a little bit more just because that's what I always did. Now I love Hobie and I like the KBF stuff. I don't have no really complaints about it. But the one thing that Hobie, like you said, has right is the 2-day format, and I wish bass would do that plus points because I think their turnouts would be so much better. And like you say, you see the better anglers kind of rise to the top because anybody can go out there and just have one of those phenomenal days that is just like, oh my gosh, this is the best fishing they ever had. But to back it up the next day or to even save enough fish for your spots, you know what I mean,
Mm-hmm.
to go into
Yeah.
the next day, that's what I've always loved about it. You know what I mean? Like, and that's it's hard to keep something consistent for the weekend because it's always changing, and that's when you
Mm-hmm.
see the better anglers kind of start coming out and like knowing how to put a pattern together and from practice through on, and but you're right, Hobie's got it kind of figured out right now, and I think you'll see other trails start to follow, like they'll
Yeah.
start seeing it.
Yep, and I like the way KBF has live AOY points. That's
Mm-hmm.
pretty cool. I mean, seeing the standings live is pretty amazing. And then the 1-day tournaments work out well for what they're trying to do, and giving anglers more opportunities and getting, you almost see like that's after local and regional stuff when people start getting into kayak fishing. I feel like KBF's kind of found their niche. Like that's where you go almost next if you just want to pay $100. $115 to enter a tournament. It's a 1-day, and then you work your way up maybe to, a BASS or a Hobie event, which is like 260, and has the 2-day format. Obviously on the Hobie, I think Bass you'll see, maybe some 2-day events next year, and the AOI being included. So that's what kind of the rumors are. But hopefully we'll see that, and things will just continue to get better because they are listening to the anglers. I promise you guys, all these trails are still listening and still trying to get it, even more dialed in than they have it now. So it's going to be really, really fun next year. I promise you that. And before, obviously, next year, we've got a couple of incredible championships
Yeah.
here to come as well. And it's going to be tight. These AOI races are going to be really tight. And I do like that, by the way. Hobie does a really good job on their AOI. The points and everything is very understandable. You try to get into the TOC, the top 50. It's very clear how you get there.
Yeah.
You got to be in the top 3 at a tournament, and then they take the rest from the AOI standings. And then obviously, what I do think is cool is KBF and Hobie have the same thing where it's just your best 3 tournament finishes count for your AOI score. So at least there's some sort of symmetry there between those series, and maybe Bass will fall in line with that as well. So it'll be very easy to understand all of them.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I like the TOC because, like, say, and I have nothing against the national championship, but like we've discussed this many times, but like the TOC, man, that is like you're getting the best of the best. You know what I mean? You're getting the cream of the crop right there going into that tournament. So everybody's good. Everybody they worked hard to get to that point, and I don't know. I like how they do that. So, and the cool thing about you fishing and like say you're reigning champion and you're in the hunt for AOI, in the Hobie stuff is I hear a lot of guys that don't like to fish Hobie stuff because they don't have a pedal drive. They're like, oh, that's for the Hobies. They got the best pedal drive system out there, and if you ain't got a pedal drive, it's hard to compete. Man, you're paddling, dude. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, man,
you're getting it done.
Sure, man. And I wasn't doing that for Hobie pedal drive. I was just saying, no, man, you can win with the paddle, all day long in these tournaments. There's some. It's very like, man, the more the sport gets deeper and deeper, and the more like people really understand what a paddle kayak can do, where the advantages are of a paddle kayak over the pedals. When you get into a paddle kayak like I do, I look for water that is advantageous for the paddle kayak over a pedal. So I know a lot of pedal guys won't be there because of maybe it's thick vegetation or it's a harder access and their boat weighs 150 pounds or whatever, 120 pounds. They want to launch from a launch, and I can launch from a different spot that maybe my little 49-pound ultralight or my 60-pound CK1 Venture can get into. You got to find the advantages and understand the advantages of a paddle kayak and a lightweight kayak, and then look for those areas during pre-fishing and see if you can make something work there. Now, you can't always do it, you know what I mean? But that's what I look for, and a lot of times it does work because the other guys want to be where their boats are most advantageous. And there's fish in all the places. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just, you just go where you prefer and where your boat can take you the easiest and, to get the most advantage. It's why I always use this analogy. It may be a fine line. You might get another bite here, another bite there. We just try to do anything we can in tournament fishing to just squeeze a little bit more out of, every day of fishing. And the analogy I use is, at one point, right, in Olympic swimming, someone decided to shave all their body hair and they realized they picked up like 0.3 of a second, right, faster. And then they start wearing those suits. So my point is, every tournament I fish, I find little ways. If I can find a little way with my kayak to squeeze out an extra fish, and then I find a way with, something I'm doing with my technique and tackle to squeeze out another extra bite a day. By the time you do about 4 or 5 things like that, and you've squeezed out 4 or 5 extra bites because you're doing a few things that other people's aren't, then that can kind of add up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's my strategy, at least.
Yeah, exactly. All right, Chris, did you say we had a few more come in?
Oh yeah, he was I think I misread the question. He was wanting to know what his favorite kayak was.
Oh, his favorite kayak.
Favorite tournament kayak. I took that as platform to fish out.
Okay.
He wanted to know what his kayak.
Well, hey, that was a good question. Anyway, we covered that, and now we'll cover the kayak. I mean, honestly, right now I've got one in the works with Crescent that I've been testing out a little bit. I'll say that. But other than that one, which is probably going to be my favorite, I can't really talk too much about that one. But the current one that I'm fishing out of with Crescent the most seems to be the CK1 Venture or that little ultralight. I mean, it's one of those two because they're very similar. The CK1 Venture is 60 pounds, so it's super lightweight. You can almost take it anywhere. But as I've gotten older, even that little bit of 11-pound weight difference seems to matter, for getting in and out of different places that are difficult. The ultralight is a little bit better creeker boat. And when I say creek, it's like the places you can fish where you don't need to stand. You just need to be seated anyway, because the ultralight is really not touted as a standing platform. It's 10 foot long and narrow, so it's not really a standing platform. But what's cool about it, it's the only 10-foot kayak I know of that's kind of like a fishing platform that's not like almost like an oval shape. Like I think manufacturers want to make a 10-foot boat that people can stand in, but this 10-foot boat is actually a boat that you can paddle really well, because once you make them where you can stand in them, they're 10 foot wide and they're real wide, like
Yeah.
they're 10 foot long and they're real wide, so they don't paddle good. They're super, super slow, and they're hard to just kind of maneuver. But that one is awesome because it's the best of both worlds. It's very small, lightweight, but it actually paddles very fast for that size. So it's pretty cool being in that one, because in a tournament you do need speed, because I like to hit the high points, like the highest percentage areas I like to hit. And I know people think you can't run and gun in kayaks, and that's not what you should try to do. But because we're not a bass boat, we don't have a 250, right? However, we all have kayaks. So if you do run and gun, you know what I mean? You're still just competing against other people that are in kayaks. So if they're not running and gunning, and you can hit more of those spots and just hit the high percentage spots, then you're actually gaining casts in high productive areas on other anglers who maybe aren't going to risk running and gunning, and they're just kind of milking and staying in one area, just and letting it kind of, between pre-fishing, like you talked about earlier, between pre-fishing and the tournament day 1, day 2, they may run out of fish. But anyway, back to the question, definitely the ultralight. It's been easier to get in and out of some of the places I like to access, which can be a little tougher, to put a kayak in. But, keep in mind, you got to look at your Far Wide app, which is the presenting sponsor of both the Hobie and the KBF AOI race, and make sure you're putting in at a legal launch, because they will double check you via that app to make sure it was a public launch and not some private land. So
yeah, and that is something I really like too, with the kind of getting back to these tournament series and them actually double checking this stuff. And the cool thing about this sport too is everybody's got the app. They can go in and like double check fish. You know what I mean? Like people can see it and like, hey, you might want to check this fish out, or you know what I mean? Like
man.
Sometimes it can be a pain in the neck. You know what I mean? But it's also great because you got more than just a couple eyes on it. So, but most of the judges are good anyways. But it's also good to have some other eyes that sometimes they just might not catch all those fish coming in.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, and real quick, just to follow up on that question, the reason I go to the CK1 Venture, I didn't really talk about that one, is because if I need to stand, then I go to that one. So I talked about the ultralight being small and narrow, and I can't really stand. So that's why I went to the CK1 Venture the second day of the KBF tournament, because even though I fished the same water, I knew I was missing fish because it was very clear, and I would run up on something and it was like a log that was submerged, and I didn't know it was there because, like I said, I didn't have time to really pre-fish. So then when I ran up on it the next day, I wanted to be standing to see structure from far away that was underneath the water that I could cast at before I got there and spook those fish in that clear water. And that's actually where I caught a lot of my fish, was in that sort of hidden, I would say kind of hidden structure that you can't see, it's under the water, not breaking the water surface. So the CK1 Venture is a little bit better when you want to stand up.
Now let's talk a little bit about the crew then, because since we're talking about this, I know me and James, we made them out for the crew and took it out and tested the XI3. We always like to test all the boats to see because some boats out there, it seems like a great idea to put a bow mount on, and then you get out there and you're like, I don't know, man, it's kind of iffy. And I was like that with the crew at first, but then when we took it out, I was really, really surprised at how well the crew does with the bow mount. Like how stable that boat is, and how dry it is actually. By the time you put everything in there, how dry that boat actually is inside when you add all that weight.
The crew's a hidden gem in the Crescent line, because a lot of people don't realize, I guess I'm a smaller guy, so I don't really use it because I don't really need that much volume, that size of a boat. And I use the solo skiff a little bit more that we also do, the solo skiff. I use that one a little bit more because it's, a little bit bigger boat, and I use it for big water. But the crew is actually really, really a hidden gem, because it can be used as a tandem or a solo. But because it can be used as a tandem, like you're saying, it's got the volume to handle what is essentially a second person with the weight of the trolling motor and the battery. That's basically your second person.
Yeah.
So it was built to handle that much volume. So once you get it down with that weight plus your weight and your gear, it's still at the optimal performance level. So that's what's great about it, and why, you turn it into that solo boat, and it's just a fast. I know Ken Morris, buddy who does a podcast with me, he loves that one. He puts a bow mount, on it, and, runs that motor guide like crazy, super fast on that boat. So definitely a hidden gem, and you can stand in it. It's a good boat for sure.
Yeah. I was really impressed when we took it out. Like we've paddled the other Crescents and liked them. Thought they're really great boats. Light tackle, ultralight, and but then we got in a crew, and I was like, holy moly, like this is a really nice boat. I like this. So, but let's get into being consistent. We went over some of your stats and your recent events and like people don't understand. Like I was talking before I had you on was you got to draw a line. Some people draw a line. Like I want to win a tournament, so you go hero or zero, or do I want to win AOI? And sometimes guys can do both. You know what I mean? Like they can make both work. But then some guys are like, I'm either going to fish for big fish and not catch none at all. And then some guys are like, all right, I'm going to catch a limit and then just see if I can work. And some of these events, that's all you got to do is catch a limit, a decent limit. And I'm not saying you're going to win by just catching a limit, but you'll do well in points. You know what I mean? And if you keep chasing it, you'll do really well and be consistent. But when you go in and fish a tournament, are you going in like, hey, I am 100% going for the win? Or do you go in like, look, I want to try to win an AOI. I want to go find me some decent fish and look for something bigger? Or, what is your strategy when you go into that? What is your mindset?
Well, it's kind of an interesting mindset because when I pre-fish, I like to give myself 2.5 days, sometimes 3 or 4. Like at La Crosse, I gave myself 4 days. Well, probably like actual 3.5 of fishing because I'd never been there before. But anyway, if it's somewhere I've been, 2.5 days. But what I like to do is I try to hit as many spots as I can on the map that I've, made pre-fishing, right? Like I think everybody does this, right? You got all your points, your waypoints you've put on a map and you've transferred them to your phone or whatever, and you're going or on your fish finder if you're out there motoring around and pre-fishing. So I try to hit as many as I can and try to get just a few bites, a couple bites at one spot, and then I leave. You know what I mean? So I don't know during a tournament, I don't really know what I have until the actual tournament day, because so many people, I feel like they wear out all their fish and they don't last. And so it's this fine line of how many do I catch to know, where I should be fishing on tournament day, as opposed to, catching too many and then you don't have enough for both days of a tournament. It's a very fine line. So what I basically do is I choose the spot that I feel had the most potential, right? Where I got some bites and had the most potential to be a spot where I could maybe be there all day long, But I don't really know what I have. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I have several spots that I know I can move to, and I always, like to give myself an out. You know what I mean? If I get to a spot, I don't choose a spot, for example, that's 4 or 5 mile paddle away to begin the day. Never. I like to give myself an out, a spot that's a little closer, right? And give myself, that way I have a way out. If it's not what I think it is, based on the fact that I did get a few bites, right, during pre-fishing, it gives me an out to leave to another spot, and then I can explore that one further and maybe even get to a third spot in one day and explore them all further. Once I've done it, then I know which ones really have the bigger fish, have the bigger populations. Maybe I know where I've seen other anglers, which may make a decision on the next day where I want to start, So I go in just with the mindset of I want to catch a limit. When I get a limit, I fish a lot freer and I feel a lot better because I know, like you said, sometimes you just need to get a limit and then do it again for another day in some tournaments, and that'll put you pretty consistent, up there. So once I have that limit, then I can obviously feel free to push a little further in some other areas or even go pre-fish and explore some new stuff during the tournament that, based on all the places I did learn in the pre-fishing, I can take a gamble. I did this at La Crosse. My whole second day was, even though I was there for, like I said, 3.5 days of pre-fishing and fished a lot of areas, rain came and blew it all out. So a lot of the areas I'd fished were just, they were muddy. It wouldn't work. So I went and pre-fished and hit every little mark and little pin that I'd planned out the night before. I said, I've got to just gamble. And these all look like spots where a fish should be. So, sometimes you just got to go do that. But anyway, my point is I like to get a limit, go to the spot where I think I'm going to get a limit first. And then it frees me up to go and hit the other spots. And then we'll see where, we'll see what we actually have. And if we're in contention after day one, then it's like, okay, now how do I make a strategy and a game plan to get all the way up to the very top on day two? But so I hedge a little bit, you know what I mean? I'm not really shooting for not the win, but I feel like if you put yourself in contention enough time, that's all I want is a chance on the second day of a tournament or the third day, like a national championship. All I want is a chance at, the win. You know what I mean? If you
Mm-hmm.
get a good limit, you could still win it. And more often than not, I think the way I pre-fish in my strategy, I tend to at least give myself a chance, even if it's a slim chance, like a high limit, like a mid 90s or something. That's still very doable. So I do a little bit of both.
Yeah. Now, when it comes to, let's say, all right, we're on a 2-day tournament and you got your limit. Now, do you sit there and grind it out then and try to say, look, I need to find, let's say you got a limit of 70 inches. Let's just say you got a small limit, 70 inches. And do you still try to grind it out, or do you just kind of leave them or and go explore something different? You know what I mean? For the rest of the day, or how does that play out? On day one. Now, day two, I know that kind of once you find your spot, that's you're going to be on your best spot on day two. But on day one, like say you got a okay limit, but it's not monstrous. What do you do? Do you go start looking?
I'm out of there, man. I'm gone because first of all, unless I went to that spot in pre-fishing and caught big ones, I need to know that big fish are there. So if I just got some bites in pre-fishing and they weren't like giants and they were kind of smaller, but it was a spot I thought, like you said, I could go there and just fill a limit real quick, then let's just do the math. I mean, pre-fishing, I didn't catch any big ones, but I had bites, right? So it made sense to maybe start there, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then during the tournament, you're telling me I got 70 inches, a small limit, no big ones. And that's obviously at least 5 fish right there that I've caught to get a limit.
Yeah.
So I probably have caught a few more maybe, and nothing was big. At that point, you're probably looking at 5, 6, 7, 8, maybe like 8 to 10 fish you've caught in that one area, that one spot. None of them have been big, and to me, I'm gone. I'm gone. I got to figure out, like, for some reason there's small ones there and not big ones, and obviously that can, even though the big ones aren't there, you can learn from that area on, maybe what it looks like, or the watercolor or something about it that is not attracting the big ones. So that they've got to be somewhere that doesn't really look quite like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'll go explore something new and different that I'd found in pre-fishing, or maybe. And guys, don't be afraid. I mean, I know it's hard, but you got to trust your instinct, trust your gut. You can pre-fish and practice during the tournament and do really well. I mean, and you want to be like kind of, off of the main area that you started catching. You found them and you're catching them in the tournament, and you got to like branch off a little bit. Don't be afraid to go out and do it and just kind of learn and pre-fish because you want to be hitting your stride and really learning it really good by the end of your first day, and then you're really on them for day two and you haven't worn them out. Because if you know the area so well, and you're like, oh, I caught one off that tree and off this rock and off that. If you know that so well already on day one, you've probably pre-fished too much, and now you're not going to have enough.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's the worst thing I see. Like when I'll be on social media watching guys that are following along with guys that are practicing, and they're like, oh man, look what I found. And they have another picture, look what I found. And I'm like, all right, you just showed like 3-4 pounders. You know what I mean? Like, oh god, and it's not far apart,
Right.
Like I'm like, oh man, and then and then you see tournament time roll around, and then they're like, all my fish disappeared, blah blah. Well, you probably hooked everything, So
yeah, it's true. And people do say in pre-fishing, and I had 90 inches pre-fishing, and honestly, I really don't ever have 5 that are that good in pre-fishing. And if I do, that's a good sign for me, because that means I went to pretty much like 3 to 5 different locations to get all those fish. Because if I catch a good one at one location, I'm gone. Like I know that there's the odds are in my favor that wasn't one random big bass there. That rarely happens. It did happen to me at Dardanelle this year at Hobie pre-fishing. I caught a big one within the first 5 minutes and left. And then the next day, the tournament, I went there and there was like a 16 and like nothing else. Like, so I guess every once in a while there is just one kind of random big fish, but usually there's more in that kind of zone, in that general vicinity. So no, for sure, man, you gotta be careful on pre-fishing, not to hook too many. Because I mean, again, I just don't know how many inches I have pre-fishing. And I have had days where I accidentally caught them on the Susquehanna pre-fishing. I did catch 5 that I did measure that went like 96 inches. And I have old YouTube video, or not YouTube, but GoPro video, I haven't posted it, where you see me hooking a fish, and I was trying to pull it away, and I'm fighting a fish, and And I'm like, shoot. Oh, man, I'm so mad. And then it looks silly. Like, why is that guy upset that he's catching this giant fish? But I was trying to pull the bait away from him, and there was two of them. But anyway, yeah, it rarely happens where I know how many inches I have pre-fishing, which is why at all. But it does blow me away how many people do know how many inches are in the area. And maybe it is a little bit of has to do with the places I like to fish are a little smaller and a little bit more fragile. So you got to be careful, especially when you're fishing waters like I like. Now, if you're on the main lake and you're fishing a school of, you're on like Gunnersville and or Kentucky Lake or some big reservoir, and you've got a school of 100 or 500 largemouth you're on offshore, then okay, yeah, you're probably good to go to catch 85, 90 inches on pre-fishing, and then in that one exact cast, and then do it again on tournament day. But how many times are we on a school like that? Not very often.
Yeah, exactly. So, what, Chris, before we get into another question, Chris, you said we had some questions come through?
Drew, what is your go-to bait when the chips are down in a high-pressure place?
It pretty much is the Project Z chatterbait. That's just my go-to. I think people know that about me. I like the Project Z a little bit better than the jackhammer. And I go to it with a 4-inch diesel minnow in the back. One thing I know for a fact, just from being a nerd with bass fishing and having biologist friends and just what I've seen, is that the big bass, they love to eat brim. They just love to eat the bluegill and the brim. That's like one of their staples, right? When they get bigger, especially, they love it. And I use the breaking brim colored Project Z chatterbait with a green pumpkin diesel minnow on it. You can highlight the tail like chartreuse if you want, but that skirt's a little bulkier than the jackhammer, so it flares out. It's a bigger profile, and it also has the extra skirt on the back, which tapers down like a tail. So, and then I like the hook on it better. I like the line tie on it better. I like the keeper is really good that holds the diesel minnow perfectly, and the 4-inch swimmers that Z-Man makes. I just like everything about that bait a little bit better than every other chatterbait. And that brim, that's the exact color and the exact setup I use when things are struggling. I'm like, I know I can get bit on this. Big fish, love brim. That's what they want to eat. And I've seen some of the biggest bass in my life. One time I saw a giant one come out of the water with a giant brim in its mouth, just trying to swallow it, just jump right next to me. And I was like, that's the biggest bass I've ever seen. And just images burned in my brain, and I've seen them busting them. And obviously there's times of the year when shad make runs, and they you switch it up to white, shad pattern type stuff. But that's my go-to, man. That's it.
What else we got, Chris?
Chris wants to know, do you think there will be a time when there will be a pro division and an amateur division?
Oh, for sure. It's going to evolve. The sport will evolve, and I hope that it evolves sooner than later, so I still got the energy to keep going in this. I've only been fishing tournaments for about 2.5 years, like hard, national level stuff, hardcore stuff. But hopefully I can keep it up, and in the Bassmaster, maybe they'll give an elite series to the kayak anglers one day. I don't know how long it'll take, but to me, it just blows me away that, and it's what I appreciate about you guys. This isn't just a kayak fishing podcast, show. You guys do the bass boat stuff, you do the kayak stuff, a little bit of everything. And, one day we'll get there, but I wish that the mainstream world understood that here's two numbers, right? I'm going to give you two numbers, 750,000, right? It's a lot.
Yeah.
Now the number over here is 9,000. Okay. And this is approximation, but I'm pretty accurate on it. This is the approximation of how many fishing kayaks, 750,000, will be sold in 2021, counting the $200 and $300 cheapos that are, labeled fishing kayaks from, your Walmart's, Dick's, Academy, places like that. But they are fishing kayaks. I see somebody here on the messages even saying, do you think I can compete in my Sundolphin Boss 12? Absolutely. Absolutely you can.
Yeah.
But 750,000 kayaks that are dubbed from the manufacturer as fishing kayaks will be sold. And then 9,000 over here, it's a lot too, but that's how many bass boats will be sold in 2021, somewhere around 9 or 10,000 total between all the bass boat manufacturers, brand new. Yep. Again, there's a used market for kayaks and a used market for bass boats, and a lot more bass boats are out there used than fishing kayaks because the sport's not quite as, as old. But you get my point, dude. some point they're going to realize the volume, the numbers is on the kayak side, and we need to put a little bit more investment in that side, and we're going to reap the return big time if we are the first, the first ones who are kind of, I guess, trying to make an elite series out of it and get the bigger payouts there with the bigger entry fees, highlight the stars, which, by the way, the 2-day tournaments, that and 3-day, hopefully eventually we'll have 3-day where it's 2 days and then maybe there's a cut to the top 10 or something, and they try to film it or whatever. But that's the reason why a 2-day tournament is so important, because you want the best anglers to win.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not being biased as a tournament trail, but you want them to win. And here's why. If you have a bunch of names that are different every single time, there's no way you can, as fans, can really have any emotional attachment to the sport and to the anglers, right?
Yeah.
Because it's somebody different every time and you don't know their story. But when the NFL only has 32 teams, so there's only 32 starting quarterbacks, there's only so many wide receivers, and they promote their stars really well, and you have this sort of emotional attachment, the story, like where they went to college and all, you kind of can follow a certain number. I think our brains can only follow a certain number of, people and players in sports. And in fishing and golf and sports like that, there are hundreds that enter the tournament. So as a tournament trail, you really want a 3-day tournament, 2 and 3-day, really 3-day for an elite series, because you want a certain number of like 25 names to continually be there at the top.
Mm-hmm.
And then you hope that out of those 25 names, at least 10 to 15 have really good charisma, really good personalities, are really good on camera, want to talk, the viewers and the fans through how they did this and how they did that. So anyway, it's kind of getting off track a little bit there.
I get what you're saying, though. To touch base on that real quick, was because you look at the Elite Series, 2 years ago, when everything switched over to when a lot of these guys left and went to MLF, and you had so many open guys that just kind of flooded the Elite Series that were able to make it because of points, and they had to pull down so deep into points to be able to get these guys to fill the Elite Series field. And it took it a full year to start learning who these guys were. You know what I mean? Because like everybody knew KVD and Jordan Lee, but all of them went to MLF. So if you didn't follow MLF, some guys didn't want to follow it because they've always been bass, or they just didn't like the format of MLF. So now they're trying to figure out, okay, well, who's the next guy that I want to pull for in the Elite Series, So you got a lot of young guys that are making a big name for themselves now, and we're starting to see them names on a regular basis. And you're right, like on the kayak side, it's the same deal. That's kind of what we need.
Yeah, no, we really do. And so hopefully, get back to your question, hopefully someone will do it soon, because they just don't realize the impact that we have, the numbers that we actually have, and that are mounting. Like, even if we don't have the numbers that they want to see now, like when you see that number of 750,000, even if I'm off by 250,000, even if I'm off 500,000 versus 9,000, you can quickly see how in a couple, 2-3 years, like, it's going to be so much, like there's so many more people fishing out of kayaks already than bass boats.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe not all of them follow the tournaments and things like that, but you can get the idea that that's going to be changing quickly. And there's obviously a financial, benefit to getting in, to being the first one to develop an elite series. So I hope that they do have like an amateur level and an elite series level. And maybe that's what you could see KBF being. They support the local clubs, the regional clubs, things like that really well. Then they have their trail series, which is just like $100, $115. And right now, if the rumor is Bass is going to do some 2 days and have an AOI and try to step it up, well, then you got, Hobie and Bass that are trying to get to that next level. But, one day I do hope that it's these 50 people or these 60 or 70 or whatever. And that is an elite series, and then the fans get to follow along with just those anglers, just like the MLF or Bass Elite Series. You really get to know all the anglers really well and follow us along, and I think it'll be some big money on the line, and then of course I'm hoping that Bass will do this. I've suggested it to Dwayne at Tourney X, and he's mentioned he's going to try to do it. I'm hoping to put a link to weight calculator on the standings column. So obviously we still go by length, but we'll have another column that will pretty much have the estimated weight based on the length to weight calculator. And when you add big money finally, and hopefully a live stream on the final day or something, along with the weight, the average estimated weight on an official length to weight calculator, which was done by thousands and thousands of bass to get to the average length, the average weight of a 20-inch fish or a 19 and 3/4 or 19 and a half. That weight will be pretty darn accurate to what it would be if it was a 5-fish limit. So now we're doing a couple things. Maybe we'll get more coverage from the mainstream media because because I think we don't get as much coverage from main bass fishing media because we're not winning $50 or $75, $100,000 each tournament, right?
Mm-hmm.
They have no idea what 92 inches means or 102 or 85. They don't know what it means because they go by weight. But now we could solve both those problems, and it'd be unbelievable to see what would happen when both of those are solved.
Yeah. Yeah, most definitely. I like that idea. I think that's a good idea, and because I do see it sometimes on the kayak side, guys will catch, they catch 80 inches, and they're like, man, I caught 20-some pounds a day. So there's a lot of guys that need to realize too, like, yeah, you caught several, 3-pounders, maybe a good 4-pounder. You know what I mean? Like to help you get that average. But yeah, it definitely needs that. I think it would be great for sure to kind of have that, math to it for weight to inches. So, but Chris, you said we got a few more questions.
Oh yeah, the Forgotten Man wants to know his process of tournament preparation, rod, reel, bait selection.
All right, so this is a question about tournament preparation, just for the rod and reel selection, or
rod, reel, and bait selection.
Okay, yeah. Well, that's a complicated one. Obviously, time of the year dictates a lot of that stuff. But I'll tell you this: the secret thing that I do is, one, I'm kind of a nerd when it comes to the very minor little things that make a difference. So, I've got every trip I take a medium heavy 6'7" casting, about 4 or 5 6'7" medium heavy casting rods. Then I take 4 or 5 medium heavy 7'1". I'm using the 13 Fishing Omen rods mostly, and then I'll take my 7 6s that are medium heavy. And every tournament, that's like my preference of choice, or the action of choice for the kind of way I like to fish. So buzzbait, spinnerbait, chatterbait, whopper plopper, stuff like that. I do throw a 7'4". It's got C. It's for cranking. I like to throw like a whopper plopper on that, and a little bit of give, or a buzzbait sometimes. It's a little bit more of a parabolic bend. But anyway, when I don't really know if I'm going to fish a smaller, like a really teeny, super skinny water where there's a lot of trees and tight stuff around. So that's why I have the 6'7". And what I'll do is, I'll stand up in my kayak, I can actually make a little teeny like underhand roll cast like this, and I can get into some spots and cast. And it sounds silly, but it's like, 6'7" is what? Not very many inches different, right? Than a 7'1". It's like 6 inches. But it makes a difference between, getting that cast, off, or hitting a branch, or hitting the water. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, because you can't really do that underhand. And I can get more power with the underhand roll flick than I can a backhanded, cast that way. And then the 7'1" will be, when I kind of don't have any trees or anything around me to obstruct my casting, but I don't need to make super long casts. So I still have, because the disadvantage to the 6'7" is you don't have the leverage. You don't have the length and the leverage and the backbone to really, horse something out like I do on the 7.6s. But I don't need a lot of casting distance in those areas, and I need to be able to get the cast there. It's most important to get the bite first, right? Then I'll worry about how to get them in second. But if you don't have the right rod and reel, whatever, to get the bite, then everything else is, forget it. So you got to kind of work from that. So then the 7'1" are what I probably use, most often. But then you get to a place like the Susquehanna River. It's super wide, super big. And I've got fisheries where I use that on Pickwick with KBF earlier this year. I used the 7'6" rods mostly. And that is because now I want, it's clear water like on the Susquehanna. Now I want a long cast with that spinnerbait, that whopper plopper chatterbait. I don't want the fish to see me. And now I've got longer casts, got more backbone. So I bring all three. And then, of course, I have flipping rods, and I've got a few specialty things. I got some spinning rods I'll take out, and dust off like once a year. But but anyway, that's kind of what goes through my head with the the rod set up, and then the reels I use the highest speed, like an 8-to-1 Omen. I'm sorry, not Omen. The Concept C Gen 2 from 13 Fishing. Been using that one a lot. I like the new Concept Z slide. I like that new one as well. But they're all fast, like 8-to-1, because I power fish. I move fast, and it just helps me when I'm done with a cast. So I'm one of those guys who, when the cast is halfway over and I'm not around the structure anymore, I rip it back in. You know what I mean? I'm trying to save as much time as I can, and that high speed, can really help with that. It helps me not wear myself out cranking in a buzzbait on the surface or chatterbait, burning it, a spinnerbait all day. So that's kind of the setup. And then I use 30-pound mostly on those bait casters, 30-pound Cortland master braid and moss green. I don't ever, with the stuff that I throw, I don't ever use a leader, like ever on anything. But people are always amazed by that. But I just fish baits and techniques and locations and water clarities where I can get away with just straight braid. That's just, and I've said it before, it may be not the greatest strategy sometimes, because some lakes that we fish, I'm kind of limited to 10% of the water that's going to work for my styles and techniques. But I don't care. I'm still just going to go there and do it and make it work. And and maybe my ceiling isn't winning the tournament, but that tournament my ceiling's just getting in the money. But it seems to work for me, and until that changes, I'm going to keep with those setups. So that's a good question.
Yeah, nobody can argue with you. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, it's been working. You've been one of the most consistent people on the trail. So I don't think nobody can argue with you that what you're doing is wrong. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. After the results, that's right. I mean, and again, it's just a weird, my mindset about things is different. And by the way, on that question, the reason why I have that many rods the same length, when I go out, typically I want all of my rods to be the same length on a tournament day. And that's because, like, if you follow golf, there's a guy named Bryson DeChambeau, and he uses like clubs that are all the same length. And if you don't know golf, all your golf clubs are slightly different lengths as you go up from, pitching wedge or sand wedge, pitching wedge, 9-iron, 8-irons. They all get longer, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they're actually different lengths. So now you're further away from the ball, and your swing has to change. So I don't want my swing, my cast to change ever. Have you ever picked up a 7-foot rod, then you switch to a 7.6, and your first cast is way off the mark?
Yep.
Okay. Well, that just cost you potentially a fish or a bite because you got hung up or whatever. So I want them all to be the same if I can. There are times where I'm like, you know what? Three of them are going to be 7'1", and I rarely take more than 4 or 5 rods. But 3 of them might be 7'1", and then I'm like, okay, but I know a certain area where I need this 6'7". I'm going to have one that's 6'7" just for that specific area or place I might go that day. But I want them all the same. Like on the Susquehanna, it was all 7'6", exact same, mostly for those long casts, because rather than paddling over to that rock or that log, I can cast that distance now. So I want them all the same. That way, when I switch rods, I know exactly
everything
where my
good.
release point is. Yeah, the action and all that. So, and I work backwards. Like I said, every tournament I work totally backwards. I look for where's the right water, like the amount of current that I want to see for my style of fishing, because I usually am a river bassin kind of guy. I want to find current somewhere. Where's the right current, clarity, the right structure, be it grass or wood, rock. Where is the right situation, temperature for a spinnerbait, chatterbait, buzzbait, whopper plopper, things like that to work? That's where I go, and I just kind of know where that is. I got it kind of dialed in, and like I said, it's a little bit backwards, but it seems to work. So
you just fish what you're comfortable with. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
like we talk about river rats. You know what I mean? Like guys that want to run to the river. That's you're comfortable with that. And guys that love fishing deep drop shots, they run down the lake. So
it's true.
And it's where you're in your comfort zone. Because if you're out of your comfort zone during a tournament, it ain't gonna work. That's why I'm not a big believer in, if I'm gonna try new baits, it's not during a tournament. Not unless it's just like, oh man, let me try, let me throw this here and there. You know what I mean? But like most of the time, I'm trying to perfect a new bait during the off season or during practice, or you know what I mean? Like after that, during the tournament, it's all baits that I'm just gonna throw. I'm not gonna carry more stuff that I don't need in the boat that's just gonna get in the way or digging through. So. But
it's true, man. I think a lot of people do get stuck in this sort of, they see all these rigs out there. You know, like there's so many. I could just sit here and rattle off like 50. You
Yeah.
know, Carolina rig, Texas rig, Nico rig, drop shot. You know, like spinner bait, buzz bait, like top waters, crankbaits, jerk baits, soft plastic. You just go on and on with all the different ways to rig them. And now there are times and places those could be great. A lot of them is marketing to get you to buy more baits and more stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, but the thing is, I'm saying you, talking to the people watching this right now, are not, myself included, not a pro, like true elite series MLF. My income doesn't come from my tournament wins. You know what I mean? I work for Crescent Kayaks. I'm designing cool stuff with them. That's where I'm going to make most of my money. It's cool and I get money on the side, but like the guys that are the true pros making a living fishing, they're the only ones who actually have enough time on the water to experiment with all those rigs to know the right way to exactly how to tie it, rig it, all the components proper, when to use it, how to feel that bite, why they're using it then. It's like there's no way that most of the people listening to this actually ever have a need to do all that and have enough time. And there's actually a detriment to being too versatile because then you actually aren't good at anything.
Yeah.
And honestly, dude, a jig, if you just threw a jig and got good at a jig, you would never need to throw anything else because there's
Nope.
swim jig, there's, you know, finesse jigs, there's flipping jigs. Like you can, and Greg Hackney used to do that. I mean, there's people, Denny Brower, that's like all they threw. And there's people who all they throw are crankbaits. And there's people, you know, even pros,
Yeah.
that's like all they do. And they look for the water that suits their style the same way I do. You guys, you know, listening, I think there can be some negative impacts on your fishing to being too versatile. And while other people are out there trying to learn all these new crazy wild rigs and all that, I'm just getting better at a chatterbait, you know what I mean, and
Yeah.
a spinnerbait, a buzzbait. I mean, just getting better at the stuff that I'm already good at. You know what I mean? Because
Mm-hmm.
you can continue to get better at it. I can throw a chatterbait in 20 foot of water. I can throw a chatterbait on the surface. I can put so many different things in the back of it. I can work it through wood, rock, anything, grass, and I've just perfected all the ways to work it, the styles to work it. I know the rod, the line, when to use which one, the feel of it all. I know it. Whereas other people go out on a tournament day and they're like confused.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. That's a good point. Chris, what other questions you got, bud?
How much map study do you do before you going to a new body of water?
That's a good question, man. That's my favorite part of all this, which is why I hope all the tournament trails they continue to listen to the anglers and just keep going to new places, because that's like the most fun part of I think a lot of anglers is just the map study. And going to the same places, it's kind of boring. You've already studied that lake and kind of figured it out. At least if they go a different time of year, that's helpful. But or change up the boundaries a little bit or whatever. But anyway, the map study is like, especially now that I live in Northeast Ohio. I'm from the South originally, from Atlanta, and lived in Charlotte for 10 years and went to school in Tennessee. Lived in South Carolina for 5. So I mean, I've been all over the Southeast, right? But I mean, now that I have the long winters up here, it's really just something I enjoy doing once the tournament schedules are announced. And I do a lot, spend a lot of time on the maps, and I mull over them multiple times. I'll quickly just tell you the way I do it. I go in Google Earth Pro, I build a folder for that location, and I start basically looking around the entire lake and just look at every single, go up every creek, every river, go around the bank. I take it in the history, the timeline on Google Earth Pro. I take it back to where the water's the lowest, so I can see any submerged, rocks or brush piles or whatever. I'll mark everything on a map. I'll mark all of it all the way around. I'll come back a couple weeks later and do it again. And I'll go over those marks again and just scour the whole thing just as in depth as I did. And at that point, I've seen it all, right?
Mm-hmm.
So at the beginning, when you start doing this, you might see lily pads here, like, oh, I'm going to mark that spot. And you just start marking stuff because it all looks great. But in reality, you don't know if that's great or not until you've seen all the lake, right? I use this analogy. You don't really know if your home is a good buy if you haven't checked out all the homes in a 40-mile or 30-mile radius of where you work, right? You don't really know. Why would you just go to the first house, the first area of town? You need to look at them all and see them all. And then like, wow, that's a really good buy. You know what I mean? That house is really good. you don't know that with the first time you're going around the map and you're looking at this lake and you're just looking up all the rivers and creeks. It all kind of looks good the first time. That's why you drop a lot of pins and you're excited. But then once you get around to almost the end of that map, especially when you come back around and you do it for the second time,
Yeah.
you can start pulling away some of those pins, because then you're like, you know what? That looked really good, but the whole lake looks pretty much like that. So then it's not that great. You need something unique and different. There's a reason why people want the house on the hill or on the point of the lake, and not, you know what I mean, at the middle of nowhere, down low in
Yeah.
a valley, whatever. Like, it's kind of like you want the house right on the shores, in California, right on the ocean, whatever. People want to live in some cool places too, and so do bass. They want kind of the unique areas, the best ambush spots, and that's kind of what they're looking for, is transitions between a certain type of grass or another, or a certain type of rock or another, or wood. And so anyway, you basically do it multiple times with your map study. I'll do it 3-4 times for one lake, and then closer to the tournament is when I look at it one more time and I really start maybe changing the colors of my pins, like, because I know at that point how many days of pre-fishing I have, and my goal is going to be to pick the most likely, you know, areas, right, that I've found, the most likelihood to have the winning fish based on just experience, right, and what I know. And I'll hopefully have, 8 to 10 of those marked on a map. And my goal in pre-fishing will be to get to all those spots. Maybe one
Mm-hmm.
day I get to 4 of them. Another day I only get to 2. Another day I get to 3, and just kind of, and I've seen all those. So my goal in the map study, after I've dropped all the pins and done everything I can do, YouTube research, whatever, if there is any YouTube videos out there, is just to get to about 8 or 10 points that I feel have the most likelihood, and at least see and fish those, even for a short period. I just want to see them, and then I should have something that, after that point, should have something. So
Yeah.
map study's big part of it, man, for sure.
And also, to go along with the map study is learning, if you haven't learned the seasonal transitions of bass. You know what I mean? Like when they start pulling up to start feeding before the spawn, or when they go into spawn, where they go after they spawn. Like, and so on and so on. And then you get into September, end of August, September, when they're starting to make that transition into creeks. Because I know when we fish night tournaments, through the year, from like say June to August, you can be on a main channel, and you can do it all year long. You catch fish on a main channel all year long. There's always fish there, but you can also move into the creeks at the end of August, 1st of September, and catch them secondary points, channel swings, all that in those creeks, because they're all starting to pull back in it. They're all starting to pull up and start feeding on the bait fish and all that. So, like, knowing map study is great, but if you don't understand the seasonal transitions of the fish anyways, map study is useless until you've actually understood that. So
100%, dude. That's such a great point you added there. I mean, because I'm looking at rivers a lot, obviously, and I've done well in some lakes. I got second in the national championship fishing the lake, but I mean, rivers is just what I know. So I know when, kind of where they're moving, what they're doing, and maybe, like you're saying, even when the lake fish are sort of utilizing the creeks, you know what I mean, and the rivers, right? So kind of know when all that occurs, and where they're going to be. If they're just true river fish, they're way up from the lake, and they've never even been to the lake. They don't know the lake is there. Where are those fish going to be? Like, what do those fish do, right?
Yeah.
Kind of like how you're talking about lake fish, when they go from the spawn, they move offshore some, and then they come back in. There's a similar thing happening with river fish. They utilize the shallow water and the rocky shoals and stuff at certain times of the year, and they move back out. Summer and winter are pretty similar where they're located a lot of times, and in the lake it's pretty similar. Sometimes summer and the winter they're located in some pretty similar spots too. So it kind of mirrors itself. But once you learn all of that, then you're right, the map study combined with that just gives you a total package, and I think just a leg up on I think my guesses are more accurate than not, I'll say. You know what I mean? They're more correct than not. Pickwick's the best example. We got flooded out on KBF Pickwick, and I got a second place. I tied for first, so I lost the tiebreaker, but I had the same inches as first when my buddy Ken Morris won, actually. So I was happy for him, right? Because we're friends, and that was really cool to see him win. And then the next day I got fourth. So again, if it would have been a 2-day tournament, guess who would have won? But anyway, so on the day before the tournament, we got rained out, heavily flooded, just like what happened to the Bassmaster Elite Series guys on the exact same body of water the week before. All their pre-fishing, you could just scrap it. I mean,
Yeah.
everything changed. And I literally just had to everybody was in the same boat, all the anglers. I just had to go, and I just grinded so hard over the map the night before. I said, okay, all my experience, I just took in my head and said, if I'm a bass, it's flooded this much, this high, like where would I go? Where would I have to be? Because I knew one thing, they had to be stacked up somewhere, because when it does get high in the spring, flooded conditions, really any time of the year, if it's high and flooded, the fish actually get tight, like congregated and really stacked up, really tight in areas together, because there's only so many places they can be to get out of, the current and the flooded conditions. And I grinded so hard over that map the night before, and it wasn't even a spot I really had a mark on. But I said to my roommates, I think it was Ken was with me, and Jake Horn, our buddy, and I said, hey, I just looked at the map. I was like, they have to be here. If I have one more bullet to fire, a place I had not been during pre-fishing, I have one more bullet to fire. Based on all of my experience, they have to be right here, and there's got to be a lot of them. And I went there, and they were there. So It just goes to show you your experience with, like you're saying, where they move, different times of the year, or even in, big rain events, muddy water events, and combined with map study it's just all part of the equation, man.
Yeah, exactly. Chris, you guess we got another question?
Yeah, what's your favorite fish finder for your kayak?
I mean, honestly, I don't really have a favorite fish finder. I don't really use one. Like I don't think I used one last year. This year, I used to use some Ray Marines, and I have a Garmin now that I got to put on. I can't really say it's my favorite. See, I'd be lying. I'm not gonna obviously do that. So I'm just gonna say I don't really have a quote favorite fish finder, but I do have a Garmin that I don't even know which one it is. It was actually one that the guys at the Bass Tank out there in Oklahoma set me up with in a live scope. And like you said earlier, I'm not going to go, I've just got it this year, so I'm not going to go and try to learn a new, like what you talked about, learning a new technique, a new rig, right? Like you've never thrown a Nico rig, and now you're going to go try it in a tournament or during pre-fishing. No way. I'm not going to go learn live scope in the middle of the season when that thing takes a while to learn, right?
Yeah.
It's not like you just go out there, plug and play, and you're just an expert at it. So I'm going to be installing that, and I'll do an install video on it as well, because it could be a tool that comes into play for me maybe just a couple times a year, not that many, 2, 3, 4 times a year. But if it comes into play and helps me catch 1 or 2 more fish, combined with all the other stuff I talked about that I try to do to get, 1 or 2 more bites, and as it becomes more prevalent in our sport, where other guys are getting a few extra fish, or maybe I know some people are really good at, really focusing and using it, almost exclusively. You got to try to learn that. I felt like it was a tool that was important enough to get set up and learn. And I went to the guys at the Bass Tank because they're the best in the industry. They know it the best. And we just worked out a partnership. And so anyway, I don't even know the brand, but that is what I'm going to get. Put on my kayak. I have it. It's a Garmin, and I'm excited to learn the live scope, because I have a couple ideas in some situations in moving water and in lakes where I think it really could be a big player for me next year. So I'm going to try to learn it this off season and this winter.
Yeah.
And we'll see. But it should give you confidence, guys. I know somebody asked about they said they had a 12-foot sun dolphin. Could I do well in those tournaments? Absolutely. You can do well in those tournaments and without a fish finder, you know. But if you're a lake guy and your whole thing is fishing offshore structure, you're going to have a fish finder. So if you're a guy like me and you want to fish moving water, and generally you just need to be able to read current and current seams and see, structure, and know how to paddle and just kind of tell where fish live in moving water. Fish finder's not as important for what I do, honestly. So, and that's what's cool about our sport. You can win both ways. They're both equally doable,
Yeah. And we do a lot of river fishing too. That's kind of what I grew up fishing and done a lot of. And I fish the northern James River here around Lynchburg and all that. And, when you get into the river and stuff, I don't ever bring my graph with me, cause you're target fishing, like you can basically almost call your casts certain times of the year. You know what I mean? And so like you got something about fishing a sun dolphin. I mean, if you're a river fisherman, or, you can put in somewhere and fish creeks that you got a lot of docks or laydowns or or spots like we were talking about the map studies on the main channel, finding like a good long channel swing with a lot of good stuff. You know what I mean? Like you don't have to have.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's like you're fishing out of a crescent. Nothing's wrong with the crescent. It's a great kayak. It's a great platform. It costs a little bit more money than a sun dolphin, but when you look at it and how you're fishing, you're kind of on the same level with
Mm-hmm.
the amount of technology and all that. You know what I mean? Like I don't know how the sun dolphins paddle, but like when it comes down to it, you're focused more on what you know, your instinct, and what the fish are doing. And so, like say the fish don't care what kind of boat you got.
That's right, man. They don't care one bit. And honestly, to follow up on that question, it's a great question. I got into kayak fishing to get away from all of the, the electronics and just having 20 rods on your deck and the motor and the gas and the upkeep of a boat. I got into kayak fishing for that reason. And maybe, maybe some sponsors or people out there, wish I used more gadgets. You know what I mean? They wish I used more stuff, right?
Yeah.
But I staying true to who I am, and
Yep.
I've always stayed true to who I am. I use this little 49-pound boat. I'm honest about using 2 or 3 rods, just one little tackle box. It's another weird thing I do, guys. I bring all my tackle in giant Plano bins into every Airbnb I stay at. It's all there, just in case I need it. And I actually I go out with just a minimal tackle, just a few baits on pre-fishing, just to call some fish up, see some fish, get the bites, whatever. But once I've seen the structure and the vegetation, whatever, the current and the, how much weight I might need on my spinnerbait, I build a separate tackle box before every tournament. I build just 1 or 2, like a bag of plastics, and then 1 tackle box. It's like literally just 1 Plano Edge tackle box. That's it, with the baits that I know are going to work for the water types I'm going to be fishing during the tournament. So instead of bringing it all on the kayak with me, I bring it all into the Airbnb, and then I build it. The night before the tournament, I said, okay, here's the deal. I figured them out. This is what's going to work. I know it's going to be these, 7 or 8 different baits and weights or whatever. But yeah, I mean, to get back to that original topic, it's simplification is what it's all about, guys. And the fish finder for me is just kind of one of the reasons I got in a kayak to leave it all behind. And the only reason why I've gotten one now is because of the live scope. I do fish tournaments. So tournaments, it's a little bit different, I can still go out there and catch a ton of fish without a fish finder if I'm just fun fishing. But if you're trying to get into tournaments, if the rest of the field has an advantage and it will help them potentially beat you, you have to investigate that same technology, that same lure, that same whatever, same motor. I saw somebody with a motor question on there. I run a motor guide, bow mounted motor guide XI5, 36 volt, 105-pound thrust, the most I can get. If I'm using a motor, it's like I'm going to use a motor. And I actually am shocked that people usually are like taken back, like, whoa, dude, you use 36 volt setup with 105-pound thrust? That's as big as you can get for a kayak? And I'm like, it's crazy to me. That should be the opposite reaction. Should be if someone's not using the maximum, that should be the crazy reaction. Because in competitive fishing, like, Bass Elite Series or MLF, nobody runs less than a 250.
Yeah.
Because that's the maximum they're allowed. Why would you ever want to go even get to your spot 5 or 10 minutes slower than your competitors? That'd be crazy. You're in a competition. It's high stakes. And at the highest level of competitive kayak fishing, there will come a day, and like I said, whenever that question that someone said about the Elite Series and the amateur level, well, trust me, if there's an Elite Series, there's no way in the world that if they allow motors in that Elite Series, everyone will have, 100 and 105, 120, whatever the maximum pound thrust is. I think the Lowrance Ghost is 120.
Yeah.
Rumors, I'll spill some beans. I don't know if it's, I don't know, whatever, if this is supposed to or not, but rumors are there's a power pole unit coming out that's going to be upwards of like 150 or 160 pound thrust. Yeah. A Torqeedo has a 3 horsepower electric that's legal. So why would you not have the maximum? Again, I'm talking if you're fishing on the highest competitive level, there's no reason to have less. But
yeah.
Anyway, I keep it simple when I can. My mission every tournament, serious, my mission every single tournament, I have that 10-foot ultralight in the back of my truck and pre-fishing, and I am just praying to God that that's the kayak that I end up fishing the tournament out of. And the reason I'm doing that is because if I'm in that kayak, I've found a spot that means there's a spot where that kayak excels.
Mm-hmm.
And if that kayak excels somewhere, then nobody else is going to be there most likely, or nobody else can't even get there. or I'll be able to get there first if even if they can get there. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
so anyway, I hope to, and that's me just staying true to who I am. I want to be in that little boat with 3 rods, one tackle box, without a bunch of fish finder, without a bunch of stuff, just a bending branches paddle, my catch board, a few Yak Attack accessories on there, sunscreen. Remind my see my wife, hey, I put on sunscreen, and a lunch. My lunch there, a few waters, and that's it, dude. Because that's why I got a kayak. That's why I got into kayak fishing, and I'm gonna stay true to that, even in tournament scenarios.
Yeah, exactly. And you keep it simple for one, and also two, unloading and loading and all. Man, if you get a lot of stuff, and believe me, we've done it. We got some kayaks that are rigged to the hill, and on a trailer it ain't so bad. But guys, I watch guys that top load these things or take completely everything off their kayak. I mean, it's got to take an hour. It's got to take an hour to load or unload that boat, and I'm just like, heck with that mess. That's why we ended up getting a trailer. So now I can load most of my stuff except my rods. I take my rods out and put them in the truck and go on. But like some stuff, man, I'm just like, you know, just trying to hurry up and get on the water. For instance, you got to put like for you slide it down the hill, put your 3 rods in and 2 tackle box. You're ready to go.
Ready to go, man. And I can move. It gives me the advantage. I feel like I can move very easy during a tournament because of that. And maybe other people, once they put in, they're kind of locked in. Especially they put in, they got a motor or pedal drive, and they're going, they're going 3 miles away. I mean, you better have a real good spot that's gonna hold up for your fishing all day long, because you don't have an out. You know what I mean? You really don't have an out if necessarily, unless you have other spots kind of nearby. You can get to. Always give yourself an out. I'll never forget my brother. He drove a big rig truck for, I don't know, 5 years or something back in the day, and he was just teaching us a little bit about how you're driving those things, how nerve-wracking it is. And one of the things they taught him in his training was you always should be in the back of your head, like, where am I going to go if everything just kind of breaks down right now and I need to get off the road if something happens? You know what I mean? Always have an out. And I keep that in mind with kayak fishing and tournaments too. Like, if the rails fall off this area because the weather changed, the wind, other anglers showed up there, and it was a small, sensitive area, where can I make, zig and zag to make adjustments in that day? Again, I think a lot of people don't think about loading back up and moving a lot, because that's kind of like cranking up your outboard and making a big run in a bass boat tournament. And that's, again, that methodology is not something kayak anglers, you hear the opposite. And even, Mike Iaconelli, when he won, he talks about, man, I feel like I had to learn an area, pick it apart. I can't run and gun, but you can, because again, everybody you're competing against is in a kayak, and if they're all thinking the same thing, they can't run and gun, and I'm thinking and have a setup where I can, that little lightweight boat, it gives me kind of an advantage. It's like they're kind of feeling like they're locking themselves into an area, and they got to milk it and learn to kind of make it last. But you don't have to if you have the right setup. You can get back in. I get back in my Tacoma. I moved to 15 locations on the final day. Like I said, I was just pre-fishing, practicing the last day of the Hobie BOS on La Crosse, where I had really nothing. And I went to 15 locations. I was just sort of practicing pre-fishing the final day, and I put in to five or six. I put in 5 or 6 times. Ended up, cashing a check there, getting the last check. But people just, I don't think they don't want to do the work. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yep.
Or they don't feel like they can because they don't have the right setup to actually pull that off.
Exactly right. And Chris, how many more questions we got, buddy?
We got 2.
2. All right.
Clay wants to know what his most productive bait has been this year.
I mean, every year it pretty much is that Project Z chatterbait with a 4-inch diesel minnow on the back. This year I've done pretty good on spinner baits. I feel like in the mainstream bass fishing world, some of the topics that were coming up earlier this year were, man, the spinner bait is kind of coming back in vogue a little bit, because for a while it got overtaken by the bladed jig, and because it's just one of the most tried and true and old school techniques, and like we talked about, they're trying to market and sell you on all these other techniques out there that certainly work, but so many other things, it just kind of was forgotten about. But for the waters I fish, it's never stopped working, and I love a spinner bait. So it had to be the chatterbait or the spinner bait in terms of just my absolute best one this year.
Yeah, yeah, I love a spinnerbait. That's my go-to. It seems like if there for a while, it seems like if you fished kayak tournaments, you didn't have a jackhammer on or a chatterbait, it's like you weren't even in a tournament. You know what I mean? Like every time I
Mm-hmm.
turn around, they're like, "Oh man, I caught it on a chatterbait. Oh man, I caught it on a chatterbait." I'm like, "Really? Do you guys fish anything else?" But I mean, it's just that
It works.
consistent. You know what I mean? It works. Yeah. So I mean,
It does. It's
uh,
just so versatile. I mean, you
yeah,
can throw it deep, shallow. I use the 1.25, the 1.25 ounce jackhammer when I need to go real heavy, because the Project Z, they only make it in a 1 ounce. They don't make it 1.25. And I'll throw the 1 ounce and the 3/4 ounce Project Z quite a bit. But, my point is, I'll go to the heaviest version, and I'll go to the 3/8 ounce with a 5-inch diesel minnow, because the Elastec from Z-Man's buoyant. So it actually makes a 3/8 fish and swim like a quarter.
yeah,
And basically at that point, you're just waking it on the surface, spitting water. You're just waking it. So I've learned every way to fish it throughout the entire water column with all the different trailers. But another one that's been, really good for me is a swim bait, so just a straight up swim bait is still a good bait for me and always has been. But yeah, those are three of my favorites. It's kind of boring. In some ways it's kind of boring. I just throw a lot of the same stuff, but it's like, until something proves to me it's going to catch them, you know, more like quicker or whatever, like catch bigger ones, some advantage, then I'm just never going to change. I'm
yeah,
never going to change. And why would you? I
yeah.
mean,
You cash and checks. Why would you change
yeah, not going to change. So
it? What else we got, Chris?
He says KBF has a whole speed limit, so I think he's wondering how he has a 36-volt setup with KBF.
Oh well, they went into what is that identification number you got to have, or the kind of like your bass boats, you got to have a horsepower identification sticker. But
Oh, okay.
yeah, they've got a. I think that they allow the 3 horsepower torpedo is their maximum. So I don't know what that equates to in pound thrust, but I know, I'm under that for sure.
yeah,
But
yeah, compared to
so I
the
know.
torpedo, like most of the motors are under that, and really, if you look at a torpedo. And basically, what a torpedo is, it's a 36 pound, it's a 36 volt, basically a 36-volt system, really. I mean, the way their setup is and all that. Like if you compare it, like the what is the Newport vessel that just came out with
Mhm.
their motor? I mean not 36. I'm sorry. Yeah, yeah, yeah. 24 volt. I'm thinking 24 volt. I'm
24.
sorry. Yeah. It's basically a 24-volt system, but like say those bigger motors are. You can go and get to that pound of thrust, but I think it equated out to what was he? It was like 100 and some pound thrust is what that torpedo.
Yeah, the 3 horsepower one. Or are you
Yeah,
talking? Yeah, the one that's a stern mounted. That one.
yeah,
It's like a little outboard. It
yep,
really is like a little outboard. So I know I'm underneath that. So that's all, I guess.
yeah. That's all that
But
really
hey,
matters.
real quick, I'm seeing the comments too. Steve Baker, what's up, man? Hey, I see your question. The name of the website I use to find public access is Farwide. It's Farwide, and it's the Farwide Outdoors, I think. And you can just click on, basically it's the county GIS maps, right? But you don't have to go to each county, to get them. They're all compiled in on one app. So you just have to click on public private land. There's a little toggle, and you can see it has outlines. You can click on it, and it shows who owns it. So then you can see, okay, is this the state or the town or the municipality that owns it, or is it an individual, you know what I mean, or an LLC, so which would be considered private. But then you got to figure out, well, if it's private but it's a campground that allows you to launch for $5 and everyone can launch there, that's considered a public launch for kayak fishing events. So
Yeah,
there's definitely private things, private launches and accesses that are public in the sense they allow you to pay for them and then therefore are legal. But yeah, go check it out, Farwide. The other thing I like that app for is access points are actually listed on there, and you can find a lot of the access. They've done a pretty good job of finding all those. Again, they're not listing like every bridge and places like that, but actual ramps and landings and canoe accesses, kayak accesses are on there. You may have to hit some toggles to get that kind of stuff to show up, But and the last thing I use it for, it's my favorite way to use that app, is you can click on the creeks and the rivers that go up from the lakes. You can click on them, the blue lines, and it tells you the name of the creek and how many miles, or river, like how many miles it is. And again, you got to be, a little bit savvy. because if it goes across the state line, it only tells you how many miles it is to that state line. You got to click on the creek again above the state line and add them together, to see how long the creek
Mm-hmm.
truly is. Plus, you got to pay attention to see if there's any large tributaries to that river or creek, and you have to click on those and kind of do the math. But anyway, in my head, there's two reasons that's important. One, in my head, I want to see a creek that's like 30 something miles long for me to feel like it's going to have any fish in it. 30 or that's a good number, right? In most places around the country, some areas that's a little bit more, some less. The other thing it's important for is Google Maps is not very good at showing you the name of a creek or river.
Yeah.
It's hard. You're trying to follow it and you're like, what is this creek or river? What's the name of it? I don't know. Far wide, you can go to that same spot on the map and click on it, and you got the name, you got how long it is, and it's just a little easier on finding those. So anyway, that's kind of a few things I use it for.
No, that's good. That's awesome. I'm going to check that out myself too, because I've looked at for stuff like that. Like you can go buy a lake map, and you can, when you go to these tributaries and all that stuff, but sometimes they don't always have like because some of the maps ain't updated. So some of them don't have all the new kayak access points and all that stuff. So that's pretty cool. So
yeah. And Steve, by the way, you weren't the only one that saw the plaque fall. I heard it fall behind me, and I got a Hobie. I just had added it, but I didn't add enough of those commands, the 3M command strips apparently to that one. So anyway, I'll get it all fixed. I got a bunch of these other ones to add from recent times. It's a good problem to have.
Exactly right. You need a bigger wall now. That's what you need. Chris, we got anything else, man? Or
no, I don't see nothing else.
I think we're pretty good. Well, I don't want to hold you up too much longer, Drew. I really appreciate you, man, coming on and talking with us. And like I say, once y'all release your new big idea, maybe you can come on and we can talk some more about it. You know what I mean, for Crescent, and hopefully, man, we'll have you back on talking about winning AOI. And all that.
That'd be awesome. That'd be awesome, man. I'm in the hunt. Both series. Second and fifth. And I'm just excited to get down there. I'm focusing on the championships. I'm not going to do the last Hobie regular season event, but focus on the championships. Focus on, getting ready for this baby to come this December and getting everything in order. So should be fun. You guys follow along and cheer us all on, and just continue to stay positive in the whole sport. You guys are doing a great job, and I appreciate what you guys do. It's just a great thing you have going on. So keep it up. I know all the fans appreciate it, and it's shows like this that are going to continue to get the kayak fishing world a little bit more notice, a little bit more mainstream, and we can do some big things. That the bigger I think it gets, we'll do some big things and change the world in some ways that people will be shocked that we can do with just a little kayak and a paddle.
Yeah, and also real quick, I want to touch base before I let you go. I seen on your Facebook that you were co-hosting the Reel Down. Am I right on that? Did I see that right?
Yeah, I've been co-hosting for maybe a couple months now, maybe a month and a half.
Yeah.
2 months. So I've been doing that over there on Paddle and Fin, so you guys can follow along. And that's just the recap, the tournament recap show. And we also talk to some local clubs if there isn't a big national tournament. But usually we'll have on the winners of the big national tournaments the previous weekend. And I pretty much try to just squeeze the juice out of those guys and get some good info from them, maybe some stuff that makes them almost uncomfortable to talk about. Try to get some good information for the fans out there and the anglers that are trying to learn from watching the show. So it's been a lot of fun. I want to at least commit a year over there doing that with them, because they're doing great things too. And I really appreciate that like you guys, they're very, very neutral in the sport, which I appreciate. They have a love for all the brands and all the anglers, and they're kind of equal on them all. And that's just important that we and you guys, people that are in the media doing this, it's just important. Even tournament trails, if we start getting too biased one way or the other, then it's no longer true, real media. You know what I mean? It's just kind of all becomes just bought. Everything's bought. Everything's an ad. Everything's, it's like you see a lot of these magazines these days, fishing magazines. It's like all the articles are there to talk about this certain technique that uses this bait because this company paid for it. And you guys do a good job. Paddle and Fin's always done a good job of staying neutral. Yeah, they got their sponsors. They have to promote them just like you guys do, but it doesn't prevent them from talking about anything else. And I think their sponsors, that's the way they want it too. They want them to stay true, because you're going to grow a bigger following and fan base when you're just legit and everyone knows it like that. You're real.
Exactly right. Well, Drew, I really appreciate it, man. Y'all go check out the Real Downs, the Real Down, and check out their Paddle and Fin podcast. I listened to a couple different ones, and they, like I say, I like listening to their show. They got a really great show, and I actually didn't even know at the time that you were co-hosting that. I haven't listened to that one yet. So, but like I say, make sure y'all go check that out. And then go follow Greg on Facebook and Instagram and all that, and give him some love and follow along, because like I say, you got a baby on the way too. Congratulations on that. But also, like I say, he's competing, man. He's trying to wrap up another angler year. So, but other than that, guys, Drew, I mean, I appreciate it, and like I said, I hope to have you on again here soon, buddy.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Drew. You have a good one, man.
All right, see you.
See ya. All right, that was fun getting Drew on and talking fishing with him, and like I say, I knew when we went down there, it's the first time I actually had a face-to-face conversation with Drew Gregory down at ICAST, and I could tell how passionate he was about, like, we got talking about the bass events and talking about the Hobie events, and then just talking about Crescent in general, and how passionate he is. I mean, he's truly passionate about the sport, and you can see that, like when he was talking about keeping it simple and going into the kayaking and not having all this craziness, and that's why he went into kayaking, to keep it simple and be true to the sport. And I mean, I like to say, we got a lot of crazy gadgets and all that we rig on our boats, and we come from the bass boat side, so like for us to have it is like just being at home kind of deal, and like I love having the graph and being able to use the side imaging and live scope. And I'll be honest with you, live scope ain't helped me out much, but it's me. It's not the software or the technology itself. It's just me not taking the time to really go out there and just solely play with the live scope. So, but anyways, yeah, I mean, it was good having him on, and I'm really excited, and just to be able to see somebody compete at the level he's competing at and be so consistent, and it's hard. I mean, it really, truly is. I mean, I want an AOI in our club event, and I say AOI in our club event, it's not a lot of guys. You're looking at what, Chris? What do we have, like 10, 15 guys sometimes?
Yeah, probably 10.
Yeah, so, and you didn't get every guy at every event. So sometimes it was easier. But even then, like when James was fishing with us, or my buddy Alan was fishing, or my dad, when you had, and Chris, you fished pretty much all of them with us.
Yeah.
So when you had guys like that did show up all the time, and you got an average of 6-7 guys that showed up, man, it's tough to be consistent. It's tough, their seasons are changing, the bodies of water are changing. It's just really tough. And I know when we fished the Federation and Angler's Choice events, just trying to stay, like me and Alan was trying to stay in, our goal was to stay in the top 25 in points. Now you got 200 some teams on an average basis.
Robert Brown says you're his AOI.
Thank you, Robert. You my AOI. Robert's been on some, he caught some nice fish the other day. I seen that on his Facebook. We shared that on our Facebook and Instagram as well. Robert's a good team guy. We're glad to have him on the team. Love Robert Brown. We love us some Robert Brown.
And Forgotten Man, I don't know, they don't allow inflatable kayaks. It has to be a plastic.
Well, I know. I think you talking about in kayak tournaments.
Yeah.
I think you can have inflatables.
Oh, you can.
Now.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, I'm wrong then.
Yeah, because Hobie's got some really nice inflatables, and then it's I can't think of the other name of the company. Yeah, I think you can have inflatables
well,
now.
I did not know that. I'm wrong.
Yeah. Now it ain't. Used to be when you think inflatables. Now you need to check the rules on that, because it might be some stipulations.
It might be whatever series you're fishing in. You might want to check that.
Yeah, because I know, like, you can't. I don't know if you can just go to Walmart and buy remember the little rafts? It was me and you had some like little Walmart rafts.
Yeah,
Chris?
they were just rafts though. They weren't really kayaks. I never even took mine out the box. We never used them.
Yeah, and something like that, probably not. But like, you got some of these out there, like Hobie's got theirs. Inflatable rafts. It's a pedal drive inflatable raft.
Do they still make the little inner tubes with the waders in them?
Yeah.
Did Hobie make those? Or
no, I don't know if it was. I don't know if Hobie made them or not. But they do have where you put the little paddles on your feet and your pedal.
No, it's just like the it was like Bill Dance used. No, Jimmy Houston used it. No, not Jimmy Houston. What's the other
Bill
guy?
Dance, I think, used them some too.
Roland Martin. That's the when he was doing the intro to his show. He had like that.
I remember that
35-pounder. Like he says they are, and if it jumped out of his hand, he was in one of those little inner tubes.
Yeah, I do remember that.
They had waders in them.
Yeah, well, see, like now they got them where you can sit in the tubes. They got like a little seat in them.
Yeah.
And you can put fins on your feet and
okay.
paddle around. Actually, the guy that Shane Lamont that we had on the show a while back.
Yeah.
I think that's how he started. Was fishing a lot of that.
He typed in chat tonight.
Did he? Did he come on?
He said, "What's up, guys?"
Oh man, that's good having him. I like talking to Shane. I actually need to. He's got a video they're going to be coming out with fully decked out Ike Hobie that they rigged out for a guy at one of our dealers, Kayak Fishing Supplies, and they did a big rig out. So I'm hoping to see that video here coming soon. So, but yeah. I mean, like check your rules and all that. I mean, the biggest thing that they get onto is like John boats. You know what I mean? Like you can't have a John boat.
Not a kayak.
Yeah. But like some of these kayaks, like what they got, the one, I think Feel Free makes it, or it's the Johnny boat is what they call it.
The little round one?
No. This one's actually like a kayak. It's just wide and it's a single seater, but it's kind of like a Feel Free kayak. It's plastic, but they do make those big round ones. I don't see nothing of that no more though.
That seems like a kind of a.
Yeah, it's like a novelty kind of.
It's not gonna be just kind of hard to. I know I've seen videos of. Bob and them use them. They move around. It seemed like it seemed like it would just be hard to use and hard to control.
I would think if you got a real windy day, like it would blow you around.
Good thing you get to spin you around.
Oh yeah, you get one of those water spouts
going in circles and you wouldn't be able to stop it. Yeah, I haven't seen nobody talk about those much no more.
No, I mean that was a big deal there for a while.
Yeah,
I mean Bassmasters had them in their magazines. Like that was a big deal.
I don't think it really caught on.
No, I just think you got to have a trailer for it. They were too big and bulky and heavy, so you had to have a trailer for it. So, but trying to go over, make sure I covered everything here tonight. Like I say, guys, also a lot of you guys that are getting ready for tackles or getting ready tournaments coming up. You got say this winter you're going to be starting to get ready for the following year in tournament season or just regular fishing season. Make sure you check out oneobjectivebf.com. We have been building up our tackle selection. We got more to come. We just kind of held back before we bought any more baits just to make sure we got everything on the website. And it's starting to sell. We're starting to pick up steam with it. We're also going to have it to where you can come into the store, but I think that's going to be in the spring before we start getting it to where people can kind of come in because where our shop is located at, it's hunting season just about. And like when hunting season takes over down there, it's like a big deal. You know what I mean? You hardly see anybody on the water. It's a big deal down there. So,
best time to come in there.
That's what I'm thinking. But anyway, so like, I don't know. We're in the talks with the store being open in the spring, but we do have our online store. If you don't see anything, reach out to us because we can basically get anything now. It's just having the money to buy it all. So, but we're building it up slowly but surely. I feel like we have the biggest missile baits and net baits selection than anybody out there. Like, I mean, we have every single color and every single product that they make. You know what I mean?
We got it all then.
Yeah, we got it all. So, and that's what our goal is to do when it comes to the tackle selection is trying to get everything. We got some Strike King crankbaits, Bandit crankbaits, it's just a little bit of everything.
Norman?
We didn't get a Norman yet. We're working on getting more of our topwater selection done. We got a lot of the Booyah pad crashers. We're looking to have getting some Spro in there soon. That will be taking place here soon. We just got a lot of stuff coming. So just make sure you check it out. See if we got anything on there. We're trying to work on terminal tackle, but the problem you're running into right now is just getting the stuff. We all know that story right now. So just trying to get a lot of the product is kind of a grind. But other than that, we got, like I say, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. We got a lot of cool stuff that's going to be coming out here soon. We got some new products that's going to be hitting out here soon. If you haven't signed up for our newsletter, make sure you go check that out. That's where we're going to be running a lot of our sales. Look, we're getting close to November. We're not far. We got, we still got a couple more months.
Month and a half. About.
Yeah. So we're getting, we always do our big Black Friday kind of sale. stay tuned for all that. And we might just randomly pop a sale up for the day. You know what I mean? Hey, we got this for sale right now. We get a lot of people who's like, hey, well,
Doorbuster event.
Yeah, Doorbuster.
Yeah.
We need to get some audio for that. We'll do that. But anyways, we got some people complain that, I got on here and y'all ain't doing no sales or nothing. Well, it's hard to do a sale when you're at the peak season, you know what I mean? And you're already trying to keep up with what you got. It's hard to do a sale. And you see a lot of businesses that don't do sales because of that. So, but you'll start seeing some sales coming through here soon, trying to move some stuff and some tackle and all that stuff. So just make sure you get signed up for our newsletter. And we also, like I say, we try to post all our newest videos up there. I'm actually going to start doing some fishing tip stuff on there as well. Like these baits, work great this time of the year, rig this way, that kind of stuff. So, but also, like I say, I talked earlier, if you're interested in some of the stuff that we do on the side, like I said, I started a YouTube channel with my family for Carter Racing Motorsports. Make sure you go check that out. We're just, we're go-karting, full-wheeling, kind of all that stuff. So, but other than that, guys, Chris, we got anything else we need to add? Any questions, any comments coming across the thing?
I guess so, no.
All right, well, guys, I really appreciate y'all tuning in tonight. Please share this video. Also, we'll be on iTunes. We should have it up tomorrow if you want to go back and listen to it on the way to work or way home from work. We'll have that up there as well. So, but other than that, guys, y'all have a great weekend or a great week.